Hi, my name's Anna and welcome to my channel where we discuss all things literary. So today, as you can probably surmise from the title, I'm talking about what makes great literature great. And I want to offer a caveat. This video is filled with my opinions. This is what I think makes great literature. It is most certainly not a definitive guide for determining great literature. People may disagree with me and they may find my views unsound. That's okay. I'm only expressing my own thoughts, nothing more. Several years ago, I read a book that was highly praised. It was a New York Times bestseller. It got a lot of positive reviews. Many people really liked this book. I was not one of them. In my defense, Kirkus Reviews didn't like this book either. And for a while, I couldn't figure out why. Why did I find this book so bland and uninspiring? There had to have been a reason, I told myself. So I thought about it, and I thought about it, and eventually I figured it out. One reason was because I simply didn't enjoy the book, which is fine. Not everyone is going to like every single book, and that's just life. It's nothing against the book, and it's nothing against the individual. But I also didn't like the book because I thought it could have been more. It had some themes that, had they been expanded on, could have turned this book from a mediocre and generic novel into an outstanding and distinctive story. I'll give just one example. The main character was the child of immigrants. This book could have fleshed out that aspect of the character, speaking from personal experience as a child of an immigrant, who incidentally is from the same country as the main character's parents. Being the child of an immigrant often comes with this extreme expectation, this overwhelming pressure that you need to do well in life. Your parents came to a country where they didn't know the language, they didn't know the culture, they didn't have any money, and they barely had any education. They were just desperate enough to hope that things could be better here, so they left their family, they left their friends, they left their home, they left everything they'd ever known. And now they have you, their child. And even if it's never spoken outright, there's always the looming question: what are you going to do to make my decision worthwhile? I risked my life to come to this country so I, and ultimately you too, could have a better life. So you, my dear child, who has more opportunities in 1 week than I have ever had in my entire life, what are you going to do to make my gamble worth it? Here's the thing. One doesn't have to be the child of an immigrant to relate to feelings of this nature. It's common for parents, even unknowingly, to insinuate that since they made a lot of sacrifices in raising their children therefore have an obligation to make something of themselves. It's pretty prevalent to feel that you have to measure up to the expectations of your elders. It's a sentiment that most of us can relate to. And therein lies my problem with that book. It had numerous opportunities to discuss ideas and beliefs and perspectives that many of us have. Instead, this book seemed preoccupied with the whinings and moanings of the main character. Whinings and moanings that only related with this character. And in my personal opinion, these factors can separate good books from great literature. Both good books and great literature can be very entertaining. There are a lot of books I like that I wouldn't consider great literature. In high school, I really liked this mystery book series called Ivy Malone. I found it funny, and I read the books multiple times. But that doesn't mean I think they'll go down in history as a timeless classic. And by the way, that's fine. Not every book needs to be a classic or be considered this pinnacle of literature. Sometimes it's nice to have books that exist just for entertainment and nothing more. It's totally okay to read books just for fun. I have absolutely no problem with reading books for amusement. It can be a really pleasant way to relax. Before I go to bed, I'll often read chapter books that I loved from my childhood because it's a great way to unwind. Not every book is going to become great literature, and this is something I've been thinking about on and off for several years. Why do some books get labeled as a classic, but other books are quickly forgotten? And I know that you can find criteria from all over that defines a classic. And to a certain extent, I suspect most of us, if pressed to define it, would say something along the lines like, a classic is a book that has stood the test of time. Or we might borrow Mark Twain's quip, a classic is a book that everyone wants to have read, but no one wants to read. At any rate, whatever definition or criteria or quip that you want to use to define great literature is up to you, but I thought I could share what I consider to be great literature. For me, great literature is a book or a story that resonates across time, cultures, generations. It reveals a truth about humanity. For example, The Jungle by Upton Sinclair and many of Charles Dickens' works highlight uncomfortable realities that most countries and cultures have experienced. The rich exploit the poor. The poor in many societies are often mistreated by those in the upper class, whether they're working in a slaughterhouse in the 20th century United States or they're in a workhouse in Victorian England. One of my favorite books of all time is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. This book is the embodiment of panem et circenses. If the government or authoritarian overlords want to keep the population in check, a great way to do so is through keeping the people well fed and entertained. Going back to the idea of immigration, two of my favorite books that deal with that subject are The House on Mango Street and A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. Both of these beautiful stories chronicle the account of descendants of immigrants and what their lives are like in a way that many of us can identify with. Even though A Tree Grows in Brooklyn was written in 1943 and is about Austrian Irish immigrants, while The House on Mango Street, which is about Mexican immigrants, came out in 1984, both are still amazing depictions of what it's like to grow up having immigrant parents or grandparents. One final example, a book I didn't expect to like because I had to read it for school and ended up loving, was 100 Years of Solitude. It was hard to get through it, but it was very much worth it. In this book, history repeats itself. The characters find themselves making the same mistakes that their parents and grandparents and great grandparents made. I'm sure most of us have seen that pattern happen in real life, whether it's in our own lives or the lives of someone close to us. And to me, that is what great literature is. It holds a mirror up to humanity and shows us what we're really like. In one way or another, all literature seeks out truth, where great literature finds it. I hope you liked the video. If you have any thoughts on what makes great literature great, I would love to hear it. Or if you have any disagreements, that would be cool to hear too. Regardless, happy readings!